Welcome to Unlearn, the podcast that redefines the playbook for modern business leaders.
In a world where yesterday's truths are today's challenges, every episode brings you bold ideas and visionary strategies to thrive in a world where the only constant is change.
Let's dive in. Welcome to Unlearn. Welcome back, listeners. We have been working on something super special for you all, but boy, has it been an action-packed last few weeks in the partnerships industry. I had this pleasure of attending Dreamforce, Ignite, which were both fantastic, and then AWS reInvent, which is off the charts. There were so many cool things, and I spent a lot of time just speaking with channel partners or the partners of these big companies, and it was very illuminating. And we could talk a bit about that on in this podcast. But it definitely feels like in the last couple of weeks there's a new AI feature launch every day. And some days the AI features are launched on Sundays, and so I think it's a lot. But let's try to unpack some of that stuff here. So what we're going to do now is basically evolve Unlearn from just focusing on partnerships, leaders, and their career journeys, and going from a interview style podcast to just covering the entire technology ecosystem. So whether it's software, services, capital, talent, regulation, wherever there's an intersection around partnerships and those topics, we'll cover that. And so in some episodes, it'll be Kelly and I covering topics, and in others, we'll have industry leaders join, but to actually share their point of view versus just share their journeys. Because, I'm sure we can have them speak at any of our events to come and talk about that stuff, but I want to get them to talk about what their point of view is on what's happening in the marketplace right now. So, Kelly, how are the last few weeks been for you?
Very busy, but very great. Lots of good partner conversations. And like you said, a lot of partner news dropping that I think will be good fodder for our conversation today.
Super. Well, with that, let's introduce our guest. Kathleen, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure being here. And I am excited to be a part of the new format and shed light on some of the topics you're going to bring up. But yeah, so I'm Kathleen Curry. I'm based in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. And I guess I'll call it a seasoned channel veteran. I go way back. And I went to college here in Silicon Valley and really just fell into technology. And I feel pretty lucky for having done that. But started my career at Oracle. And the theme throughout all of the companies I've been at, I've either been directly in a partner role or I've worked in a direct customer facing role, but still leveraging partnerships. But I went from Oracle to Cisco to Symbol, which was acquired by Motorola, to NCR. By the way, those three organizations have Cisco leadership in common. Had the pleasure of working for Apple for almost 6 years, which was a really fun time. From about 2014 to 2020, and then did a stint in cybersecurity at McAfee, some cloud work at AWS, and here I am at Workday, leading a partner go-to-market for us, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, as we go on. I guess the last thing I'll say throughout that entire journey, I've had regional experience and global experience, but also feel really fortunate to have worked in environments that have had open programs, closed programs, have been in overlay positions, owned a P&L. So, I always say it's the cause and effect that makes me valuable in terms of seeing how, things just play out. And it's an exciting time to put some of that to practice as we're entering, or I should say, in the middle of this new AI world.
I bet. Every CEO that I've talked to in the last 6 weeks is how does partnerships make money? Not revenue. We got that. How does it make money? Do you know how to get to that? Well, we'll cover it on a podcast. How about that?
Asking the hard questions there.
All right. Well, let's jump into something super spicy. So, Kathleen, congrats on a fantastic run. I think the only thing that's missing is somewhat a frontier LLM company, and there's a bunch of hiring, which is one of the topics we want to talk about. So I did this post on LinkedIn last week, and I was surprised like why more people did not talk about this, right? But the post actually had 180,000 impressions. I mean, a lot of people viewed it, or maybe 60 people like commented on it, right? But the thing that caught my eye that was super interesting was the role for an executive strategic partnerships leader at OpenAI, right? In my humble opinion, that's basically a chief partner officer, so they should just like call it that, right? Like, but whatever, right? But what's even more interesting is like this the maturity of the thinking in the role was pretty awesome, because the measurement is this person has to drive partner led revenue, it has to drive partner sourced, and then partner influence motions, right? So it's like this for the first time you're kind of seeing a new type of a company that is sharing that type of information right in the job description, which definitely shows mature thinking, right? Then they say this person's got to have a proven track record operating with senior executives, EVP level or above. I'm like, fantastic. This sounds like a dream job. I should drop what I'm doing right now and go do this, right?
Asher, you're not going to get this job now.
100%. Yeah. Totally. I've already chosen the entrepreneur route. There's no coming back from there. You know, that was like a one-way door, as they call it. So everything looks great, right? And this is not by any means a channel role, right? Because they want to focus on GSIs and hyperscalers and multinational firms, and obviously like sovereignty of data and capacity issues and like all the stuff that we're all talking about, right? And then we come to the punchline. And the punchline says it has a salary of $350K to $400K plus equity. And then it doesn't say whether that's a base salary or it's OTE. So I'm thinking, wait, if this is OTE, transparently, that's what I was making like 6 years ago or 8 years ago, you know? So like I don't even know if they're going to get the right people for this, right? So why even post the job out? Now, if this is base, right, then for sure, this is extremely inspiring to a lot of future CPOs. But also transparently, like a lot of the CPOs that I know are already making that or higher, right? And so then I'm like, well, let's see what the market like wants to do, right? And then I got a bunch of commentary around like, you know, think long term and like you know, you should be able to take this risk and stuff. And I'm like, I understand that, but I also know the CPOs like to go vacations on like Ritz-Carlton yachts and stuff like that, and they have kids in private schools and all this other amazing stuff, right? So like OpenAI's valuation is $500 billion right now, right? They're about to raise another again, and then the next thing they're going to do is get the valuation to about 1.3 trillion. That's also it's being discussed, right? So so net, while the value of the paper options might be awesome, like the return to them is a little bit further out, right? Like there's no telling when this company goes public. And also, I've been at a company where we tried to go public 3 times, and the third time is when we actually went public, right? So I just want to open it up to see, like, is it worth someone taking a base salary hit to go join a hot startup?
I think there's 2 different questions here. And so I think the second part of it is more interesting, which is, but first to address your question, which is the equity worth taking a hit on cash? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but what you need to have is a certain profile as a person, right? Which is you need to have a high risk tolerance, high risk reward, right? And so this could be the lottery ticket. We are very aware of like the economics behind LLMs and the current non-sustainability of their finances. So it is quite possible this could end in a dumpster fire, especially for employees, right? And so I think it is high risk, but if there's also a very reasonable, viable option that this ends up becoming more money. So I want to talk about something else about the salary, but first, Kathleen, do you have any questions on this? Is it worth it?
Well, off the cuff, I'd say like, yeah, there's something underlying there, but to me, it's deliberate, right? It's a deliberate, look for a particular profile, as you're saying, Kelly. And I think in the world that I'm seeing, we're moving into, you have to have all those relationships. You got to do all those things that they put in the description, but with a very, I think, strategic sales bent to it. Because in this world today, like we're closing strategic deals with GSIs. We're like thinking differently about how AI is consumed. So to me, I look at that and say, they're looking for a very deliberate person who likes the risk and who wants to take it because they know they can blow it out on the variable.
And Kathleen, I think you make a really good point about that, because when you think about what this role is, right, we know that the partner operating system is changing in market across tech in general. And who is at the center of that in a lot of ways is the LLMs. They have a chance to like disrupt platforms and become the new platform. But that is very risky, and it requires a lot of bold moves and a lot of bold plays. And they are embedded with, have partnerships with, have competitive nature with the largest tech company in the world. So who do you want leading this? You want somebody who's very aggressive and very comfortable with owning and taking high risk. So I love how you articulated that, Kathleen. I think it's a really good point, is this comp structure is going to vet for that personality trait. And the only people that are willing to take this are like, I'm going to bet on myself and my ability to kick butt in this job and get it done, knowing that it is a high risk and I could lose. Well, so I love that interpretation, actually.
There was something else in there that you both of you pointed to. So to make these options, let's just say it's extremely heavy option, which I'm sure it is, right? I mean, actually, personally, I'd be like, if you're paying $100 million to like engineers, you should pay $100 million to this person as well. That would be like one heck of an announcement, you know?
You can tell Asher's a huge booster of partner leaders, that he thinks they should be paid as much as the highest paid AI engineers.
Love it.
Exactly. I'm like,
Kathleen's like, I'm on board.
So think about this side, right? So now, if the valuation is 1.3 million, that means at some point in time they have to grow into the valuation, which means they have to like eat up a lot of their partners. So they're either just going to acquire or they're going to go build. So this person who's extremely aggressive is at some point in time going to have to, I can bet $100 on this because that's how my budget allows, you know, is this person is going to burn some of his relationships. You know, I mean, that is for sure going to happen, right? Because like the product org in this company is not going to be like, oh, well, let's wait for this partner thing to figure out while we just got to go like, you know, hold on to our revenue, because the product leaders have P&Ls on their heads. Kathleen, you're nodding. Like, let's see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think exactly the same thing. I mean, I think the speed in which we're working today, and I mean, look, the desire to get revenue from a partner strategy has not changed since I've been working. How it's monetized, how it's measured, like that's always been a challenge. I think this just speaks to like there's not only the requirement to define it, but the speed in which to attain it is very, very important in today's world.
Also, I would say whoever takes this job just needs to know that you're going to go into extremely high stress environment and you may not want to do this job after 18 months. So I wouldn't be like looking at this thing as a 5 to 7 year thing. This is like, we're in and we're going to go shoot for the sky, for the moon and see where we land, you know, or shoot for Jupiter and land on the moon, whatever.
There you go.
So I want to talk about the other thing about this job that I actually found super interesting, which is the looking at their other job listings, right? And finding out like the head of sales enablement has a higher salary band. The head of sales industries has a higher salary band, which, you know, that second one is a little bit more debatable. But why is the head of sales enablement getting more money than what is essentially a job described as the chief partner officer? And to me, that is kind of not a good sign of where we are in market and how we're thinking about this, because the way I'm viewing it, these LLMs are at the center of needing to build incredibly strong partner arms across the board, both on the product side, where they're trying to get people to ingest data into them. They're trying to do e-commerce. They're trying to build out. And then obviously just the channel, the GSIs, all the hyperscalers, like those motions. So I found that to be super interesting, that their executive team sat down and said, you know what, this description of a chief partner officer, this role is actually worth less to us than the head of sales enablement.
100 million.
I find that interesting.
We'll let how about we let the audience also come up with or the listeners also come up with their own conclusions on this stuff. But Kathleen, does Workday have a CPO, or what does the top leader look like?
Yeah, so we have a SVP of partners. That's who I report to. And that individual, Matt Brandt, he reports to our chief commercial officer, who reports to our CFO.
Oh, your chief commercial officer reports to your CFO.
I mean, sorry, CEO.
Okay, got it.
To our CFO.
This is sounding even better already. I'm like, you don't have to go to CFO.
Yeah, I just got a demotion.
Get some money from the CFO. It's a direct line. The forecast meeting is a forecast and budget conversation.
I'm glad you caught that.
That's great. Okay, let's talk about the next thing that's making noise right now, right? Like Shopify essentially riffing a majority of the agency partnerships team. Now, again, this is what I was told and what I kind of grabbed from LinkedIn and stuff. I'm not sure I'm not 100% how much is true, but I definitely saw a lot of Shopify people say, thank you for supporting us till this point in our journey, and we're now going to go look for our next role, which essentially means they got riffed. But then the more interesting thing that I saw was this lady, Kathleen Clark, which congrats to her, has basically run a bunch of different teams at Shopify, but her most recent gig was to run product partnerships, and then she's been elevated. And to me, this is a trend across the industry, right? Like Salesforce made the same move, Okta made the same move. There's a number of companies that are actually bringing their product partnerships leader. Actually, Figma would be a good example of this, with Anna Conan getting promoted and stuff. And so there is a trend here as well on like, should the leader of this org be more product focused or more or go to market focused? I know those are like really the two levers. So what do you two ladies think about that?
Well, my reaction is that any product leader today has got to be go to market focused. By the way, I don't think that has changed. I think they've always should be, but I think it hasn't necessarily been a standard, right? I mean, sometimes I can think back, product's been very separate, but today, and particularly at Workday, our product leaders are like in the thick of driving the go-to-market strategy as well. And that interlock between go-to-market and product is tight. And we're even seeing, from a platform perspective, we've got our product leaders like right in line with our partner leads on the ISV side, for example, or our developer network, very engaged, very involved, and it's a symbiotic relationship. So to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that, both in terms of historicals, but I think in the present moment, why it's even more critical is that if you look at the product landscape in tech and also the services landscape, it's being disrupted significantly and very quickly. So if you have a leader who really maybe comes from like the traditional channel and they just don't understand those product dynamics, it's incredibly complex. Like me as someone operating in partnerships, if I was looking at a new role, like one of my top questions would be for the product strategy and the product vision, and understanding, given AI disruption and how that's changing platform dynamics, what is your moat? What is your strategy? Where are you going with your product? And so to have someone with that core strength to lead the partner org, I think makes a ton of sense at this moment in time.
Well, we're back to the age-old question. Is it easier to know go-to-market and then product, or is it easier to know product and then go-to-market?
For all the juniors out there considering their future career path.
Like, think about that for a second. But I think the thing that's making this shift. So one of the podcasts that I listen to is called the Founders Podcast, and Toby Lutke, the CEO of Shopify, was on it. It just got launched, like I want to say, a couple of days ago, and this is a 2.5-hour podcast. Hopefully someday we can get there, Kelly, with like our podcast.
I don't know if people want to listen to us for 2.5 hours, unfortunately.
Well, if you get Toby to come and talk about this thing, I think, or Carl from Workday, like I think they would have a lot to share with us. But Toby actually goes through all of the things that have happened at Shopify and how he's gone and quote unquote rejiggered the company for its next level of growth, right? So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in this topic, to just go listen to Toby's podcast with David Sendra. It's an awesome podcast. But the other thing that happened, I would say maybe like a week or so ago, is Google launching the Universal Commerce Protocol, and all that means for all of us regular people like myself, it's just like it's standardized language, So you've basically got these AI assistants who are going to make purchases on behalf of humans, which my wife would love. And so, or maybe I would love it too, because then I can be like, hey, budget controls, But the thing was co-developed with like Shopify and Etsy and Wayfair and Target and Walmart and all these amazing companies, right? And so in that type of world, the person who leads partnerships has to have a product major so that they can navigate these conversations. Because if they're out there and their team is out there building relationships, figuring out new business models, so there's got to be a leader that is a little bit more product heavy, and then a go-to-market is a function of that. So that was one data point that I thought was interesting in the marketplace, which may have been one of the reasons why this org change was made.
Yeah, I think the way that data moves between systems and who owns data is kind of a critical battle that's being negotiated in market right now, because everyone is very well aware that the power of AI and agents is heavily dependent on the information that and the quality and volume of information that the AI can be trained on. And so we live in a world on the tech stacks of like deeply integrated systems, right? Most businesses have at least 250 software that they're running. And obviously with enterprises, it gets into the thousands. And so when you think about data moving through systems, it does become an issue from the customer. They want all the data they can get their hands on it, but who controls it can change who owns the value. And I think there's a lot of confusion in market as to how we're going to navigate this. I know Salesforce had made a move a little bit ago where they were trying to control what third parties could do with the Slack data. And there was a lot of pushback because the customers were saying, hey, wait a second, this is my data in Slack. These are my company DMs and messages. And you're telling me I can't put it out to Notion for my use case. And so I think, though, what that was probably Salesforce trying to test the water and find out, hey, if we can lock this information in behind this walled garden, we have a lot of value. We can run our own AI on top of it. And of course, the customer is a powerful force to say, no, that's my data. I want to move it. So I think all these dynamics are being disrupted. And so that is why the product partnerships angle is so critical to figuring out like who's going to be able to capture value and maintain that value.
No wonder the CEOs are like, how does this partnership stakes make money? Like forget the revenue piece. So, all right, Kathleen, jump in and tell us how.
I was going to say, well, that's an important component, but I was just going to add, like, this conversation is reminding me of like, really partnerships is a team sport. And I think you kind of need that talent, product talent, go-to-market talent, marketing talent. Like you kind of need this conglomeration of talent now in the partner organization to kind of bring this all together and make it work. So whether that's the product major in the CPO role, or you just have that embedded in the most critical parts where you need that, I think it's important nonetheless. When I think about how we're shaping it at Workday, it's a little bit in that nature. I certainly would not say I'm a technical person, but I have a person on my team, who has implemented ERP and is helping us develop our ISV strategies, to make our ERP story even stronger. And while he could talk, all around me about some of those technical aspects, I think it's most important that he's enabled and empowered on the team to do the work we need him to do. So, we could probably think of a ton of examples, but it's definitely not, traditional partner management anymore. I think that doesn't, that's being disrupted.
It's a great point. And also, while we're discussing this, we just talk about just the alliances skill set. I know we're partnership leaders, but like we are for everyone, right? And early on in our journey, we were just product partnership leaders, or SaaS partnership leaders, but we learned to appreciate all the partnership leaders. But the alliances skill set is also a very different skill set. The skill set to like build solutions, get those competencies done, like focus on adoption and expansion. It's a different skill set. Those people think differently.
Absolutely.
It's not the same thing as ISV partner managers or channel managers.
You are exactly right. And I think it's an important thing to note, because sometimes we just lump in partner. to anything. And the motions are completely different. And it now reminds me back to the OpenAI job description, right? Where it's very specific about the relationships to build. But alliances are very difficult, and I think take definitely a different level of setting expectations and commitments and investments to make that work. To me, they're hard because we can make those commitments at an executive level, even investment. But if it doesn't land and go to market, it falls apart. So they're complex, but very critical.
Well, this is one of the reasons why, and Kelly and I have chatted about this on this podcast. I think the CPU's role is to optimize relationships. And when I say that, it really just means the sequence of which partners, audience do you go work with first, and why, and then how do you build the capability, how do you get your company to understand who they are, what their identity is, how they want to be dealt with, and all these things. And then you layer in, that's why I think the partnerships is extremely complicated today. I remember when I was doing partnerships in the field, it was relatively straightforward. There was the channel people, and then there was these product partner people that were sitting somewhere in the product org, and then over time, as the consolidation has taken place, and then we've had a supply of, I would say, people and partnerships that do actually understand P&Ls now, right? This was not a thing 8 years ago, even when we first started PL. Okay, so tell us about how Workday's partner org is set up. Let's dive into the org a little bit.
Yeah, so we've got 4 key leaders in our partner organization. 2 of us, I'm one of them, drives partner go-to-market in the field. Okay. So we have an international lead, and I lead Americas. Okay. In addition to that, I also take on the GSI global partners, as well as we have an industry ecosystem team that's kind of pulling together the ISVs from a go-to-market perspective. Right. And finally, I do also have partner success for global. The other 2 key leaders in the organization are what we call innovation, our innovation leader. That is where ISV partners sit. But we have a whole host of technology types of partnerships, and they all land there. And that's a global function and role. Yeah. And then strategic partnerships. And, obviously some of our big ISVs are strategic, but our strategic partnerships just tend to be a little bit different, adding value to the platform, maybe really focused on, our HCM or ERP motions, and again, adding more value to the platform that is driven through our go-to-market partnerships. Because we really look at it in 3 aspects. One is kind of partnerships that support our core. Yep. Could be services partners that deploy it, and that's just our core software. Then who's building on top of it on our platform, and then who's extending that to add value to the workforce of our customers. And that's really where our strategic partnerships fit.
And today, interestingly, when I was a partner manager, Workday was something that nobody wanted to manage, and I actually bet on it. And then the first, what is it called, Rising, right?
Yes.
As was the first Rising, and I was hanging out some of the ISV booths, and right next to me was the CIO of Bank of America. And that was the first time I realized what enterprise actually means. I'm like, oh, this guy is here. It's very interesting to go talk to him. But so the company's main thing was HCM, right? Human capital management. And then the next thing was ERP or financial management, right? Yes. What are some of the other updates or are there other pillars now that are available?
Oh, yeah. I mean, both on kind of our HCM, we look at it from a OCHRO and an Office of the CFO perspective. Yep. In both of those aspects, we've built out the portfolio quite extensively. So there's great solutions in there. I would say from our platform strategy, we've got an entire build and developer strategy built on our Extend product that allows developers, our customers, to build on top and add value where they need it to their solutions. And then, of course, last but certainly not least is our entire AI strategy. And that's both, organic growth that we've built over time. And we've made, 4 acquisitions just this past year. I think 5 in total if you go out 2 years. So our AI portfolio has dramatically increased over the last 12 to 18 months. So, whether we're looking at, agents we're building ourselves, opening up the network and their platform for partners and developers and their customers themselves to build agents on that platform. And then out of the box solutions, like we acquired a company called Evisort, right? That is, totally automated and turned, contract management on its head, driving immense amount of productivity enhancements and just cost out of the business in terms of managing complex contracts. So it's kind of across the gamut. So, and I don't think I'm announcing anything here, but we're just finishing our fiscal year this month, next week. And certainly going into our new fiscal year, we're going to have a lot of great announcements around how that portfolio is shaping up, how our partners are going to have a much easier and simpler time embracing the developer tools that we're coming out with in the story. So I'm really excited about what's to come in our Q1.
Well, first,
I have a question for you, Kathleen.
First, thank you for spending time with us in your year end. We totally feel loved.
Good. It's important.
Two related questions. So does the innovation partnerships team also report up to your boss, or they report somewhere else? Okay, they do. They do. So would love just to hear your thought on the processes of how you go about developing that AI strategy kind of around partner and product and like finding alignment, because often, it's natural for product teams. They have their own product. They're thinking about like, how can I add AI to this experience? But then there's a whole other layer and a whole other dynamic to think about. How do we layer in partners, whether it's bringing in data, putting data out, or enabling partners to build AI solutions on top of your own platform? So just from like, almost like an organizational structure, how does everybody come together and like have those conversations and make sure partners like represented at the table?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it was a team sport, and it truly is a team sport. And I think this is a really great example of how complex it can be, but with the right organization, you can, pull this together. But from what you just described and bringing all of this AI goodness to market, right? Number one is, the customer's at the center. And I think Workday has a really great reputation of having very high customer satisfaction, and we hold that very dearly. And so we have a lot of mechanisms to make sure that we are empowering our partners first and foremost to be at the ready with all these tools. I mean, 80% of the work that gets done with our products at customer sites is being done by our partners. And so I mentioned an organization called Partner Success. We work really closely with our customer success organization and our product organization, kind of a tri-party partnership internally to work together on, what we fondly call our ramp process and getting our partners up to speed on these new products. Obviously, when we're doing it organically, it looks a little bit different than when we're acquiring a company, but nonetheless, lining up our partner activities and the actions we need to get them empowered to not just implement the product, but also represent from a go-to-market perspective. It takes those functions then plus go-to-market, which I didn't mention, kind of coming together and shaping that. So I'm missing it, but I'm trying. I don't want to go too deep on this because I could go on and on, but it does take that coordination and us holding each other accountable so that, when customer one on that new product that comes out can be successful, we're at the table, the partners at the table, and we kind of have all of our checks and balances. So we've got a great program that stands behind that does hold all of us accountable. We take health metrics of our partners and our internal professional services organization, really seriously. And I think maybe most importantly is we don't delineate, between the tooling, the services innovation, how we're going to go to market, between what are we going to put in the hands of Workday professional services and what are we going to put in the hands of, a strategic partner or, any partner who has met the certification level. So I think right now for us, it's about speed in getting all of this, to satiate the partner community's desire to bring this to customers, because customers are trying to figure this all out.
All right, let's go to the next topic. Actually, one last little tidbit. Does partner marketing roll up to your org, or is it separate?
It rolls into our marketing organization, into our CMO. Mm-hmm.
Super. All right, so then the next trend that's happening right now, which would be interesting to talk about, because I'm assuming you also have a point of view on that. So So the new Google partner program is launched, right? Like Microsoft did a bunch of like tiering changes and incentives and designs, like normal stuff. But obviously they have a big issue with ISVs and getting them into the marketplace and getting the App Accelerate program, as they're calling it, like working. And then I saw yesterday a service in one of the ServiceNow articles. They were actually really just calling their partners out to like lean in and get serious, which to me kind of signals that we're in a time of like fewer partners and deeper motions. And I know I've been guilty of in the days that I was working in this stuff, I'm guilty of just like talking about like how big my ecosystem is. But I think the better thing to think for our listeners to think about is like it's actually okay to like trim down your ecosystem to get to the point where you have some deep relationships, and then that are actually progressing. So that was an interesting thing. Are you all doing anything to like maybe trim down your ecosystem or towards that effect, or maybe like giving them some more resources to step up?
Yeah, so it's interesting because 3 years ago we were a closed ecosystem, and so we're like almost coming at it like exactly opposite than that Microsoft would be, or ServiceNow, who's like they built their partner program from like almost inception of the company.
Yep.
So we have been expanding our ecosystem. At the same time, I would say we're still at the same point of saying like, where are we going to get the most productivity out of things? And I liken it really to what's happening internally at all of our companies, which is how are we increasing productivity? How are we leveraging tools better? Like it really is very similar. And I think with how fast things are changing, like none of us have time and resource to invest in like the hand holding that used to happen 25 years ago when I was deep into it, and you'd come out with all of these resources and augment marketing organizations. And it's not to say that we're not doing joint demand generation. We absolutely are. But I think the impetus is a bit on the partner to know the sound business plan. They've got to be prepared to not only build, but deliver. And then if that's the case, then we are like off to the races in acceleration. But we're having to like really focus on those that are like taking off. But I do think that AI is going to help us all deliver a high level of service to partners that used to take a person that just doesn't need a person anymore.
100%.
And I mean, as I spoke with partners after just kind of like looking at some of these trends, like the services companies are under pressure to show ROI, the same way that our teams inside these technology companies are, right? And so the answer, I think, over the last year or so has been to move towards a points-based program and then put some more incentives on the adoption and expansion activities. Now, when I talk to partners, right, like it's not like even though they've had these resources deployed, they just don't have the operations to count those activities the way that the new programs are asking them to count them. And so there's going to be a little bit of a lag around like, hey, the intention is this, and now we need to get the reporting from the market back to see if it worked or not, right? I was also able to talk to this guy, Mike Marchand, who's the VP of Strategy and Ops at Advantage Solutions. Essentially is a $4 billion technology-enabled services firm. They're PE-owned, but they focus on outsourced sales and marketing, and they're known for work in consumer goods, consumer manufacturers, retailers. I was actually on a webinar with him, and then he said something which I'm about to share, and then I was like, you should do a post about this. I think this is pretty cool. And his whole thing was like, look, I'm a partner, right? And I really care about four things, right? I want predictability. Can you as a technology vendor, make the work consistent for us, right? Like, we're not the guinea pigs, like figure out how to make the work consistent with us. Now, I was also on another AWS webinar early on today where they were talking about pattern partners, which is really equivalent to like a design partner, which again, if you're going to do that, just don't spread your program wide. And then
I know the post he's talking about, and it's so funny to me. And I don't know if you have the same experience, Kelly, but like those words, like it's so interesting how like the technology changes over the years, right? And certainly AI is something way different than some of the technology shifts we've seen, or maybe more advanced. It's like more aggressive than cloud. But the dynamics, the predictability, be consistent. We need profitability. Like none of that has truly changed. Right?
100%. Oh, so many of the dynamics are saying, and that's what I was going to ask you too, since you have so much experience outside of Workday. Is like for the longest time, there's been in market this concept like 80% of the partners are driving 20% of the value, or sometimes you see it 90, 10% are driving 90% of the value. My personal theory on like that is companies in general are not very good at supporting the long tail. Like, two-partner marketing is not a strong motion. Programs tend to be kind of...
All right, I'm back.
Well, we were having a better conversation without you, so you can feel free to have more tech problems.
I was on such a roll too. I was like, wait, I'm finally going to tell the 4 Ps of partnership from the channel partners perspective, and then you hijack my thing. Okay. All right, well, let's let you two finish, and then I can just share the 4 Ps again.
I was just asking Kathleen about the concept, in all her roles across the industry of the long tail partner experience, and whether a huge part of the problem, which this might be partly solved by AI and technology, is our partners or organizations just not that good at figuring out how to engage, motivate, get, drive value from the long tail. And in fact, the experiences tend to be pretty subpar. A lot of companies are like, hey, we spun up this portal. You have no reason to log into it, but it's there and we're paying a lot of money for it, but it's lame. And so that's my take, that really it's something that the industry has not developed the right operations, systems, content, and experience to power the long tail. So my theory is it's actually a big opportunity now more than ever that we have these AI experience. But Kathleen, what's your take? Do you think that that's part of the problem?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said, and it has been a long-standing problem. I do think that, the promise of marketplace is something that's trying to address that. And, I think why I stayed in the channel, and I remember being in a channel enablement session like early in my career, and they said, how many of you, raise your hand if you've had a parent or a family member who owned their own business. And that was me, and so you watch that. And I loved this concept of watching small businesses build off of ingredients that you've given them. And if I take that now back to the marketplace, I firmly believe that is the promise of channel. That is the promise of 1 + 1 = more than 2, that we all continue to try to unlock. So if the marketplaces that I know many of us, and including us, are building, if that can deliver more than just, the words, that it actually can open up markets for partners who have a good solution, who have a good, unique industry perspective, or whatever their strategic leverage is. If that can open up a canvas for them, then I do think that could be an amazing answer. I don't think we've seen, no matter whose marketplace you talk about, I don't think we've seen it yet. But perhaps now with this age of AI, we're going to see something a little bit different and that start to accelerate. So I'm kind of looking at that as it is a big opportunity for us.
All right. Can I tell my 4 Ps of partnerships?
Yes, you can. Yes. Asher's like, I wasn't listening to anything you were saying because I was over here waiting to do my 4 Ps.
I think it's cool, but the 4 Ps of partnerships are really important.
Like, back to me.
Totally kidding. Well, I just thought it was interesting because we hear so much, at least in the circles Kelly and I sit in, definitely I'm from the technology providers like Workday and stuff, but listening to what the channel partners are saying, whether they're SI partners or whatever, it's very interesting, their problems. Because if you put yourself in their shoes, they have 10 strategic partners, right?
Yes.
And we have 1 program and they have 10 programs to manage, right? And so when Mike Marchand, the guy from Advantage Solutions, said the 4 Ps, I was like, actually, we should think along these lines, because this is someone who's sitting at a very large company, right? Like a $4 billion services firm is nothing to sneeze at, right? So, but the thing that he said was I'll share the 4 Ps. So it's predictability, make work consistent, profitability, help us get our time to money faster, participation, involve us in designing and scaling partner processes, and then progression. Like how do we now use AI to grow the entire ecosystem? And so those are like the things that he said.
Mic drop. I mean, those are them. I think the question is are we listening?
Yeah.
And are we serious about delivering that? Because it's that simple. The hard part is across all of our complex organizations is getting that level of understanding.
Yes.
I worked when I was at, I won't say, so I won't put this person on the spot, but they're probably not going to listen to this podcast, but it was a product leader at a former company.
Okay.
And we talked all the time about what does it mean to be channel first? And we'd go through these conversations like, well, I am channel first. And it was like 6 months went by and he's like, I realized I wasn't channel first. I realize now what you meant. And that was having the conversation about the partner at like product inception. We know it's going to go through the product. Don't wait until we're working out pricing or working out like our delivery method, like right from inception. How is this going to go to market? And anyway, but I won't go down that road too far. Just to say, like back to the 4 Ps, I do think it's that simple. The hard part is just us like implementing that in every single organization inside our company to make it reality.
And to your point of getting your orgs aligned, I mean, this is like, I didn't pay Kathleen to like bring this segment up.
Or that was
like, wait a sec, this is aligning so well to the docket that we have, but we just launched the State of Partnership Leaders, right? This is the annual report that we launch as a service to partner professionals around and to give them the benchmarks, right? Now, the interesting thing is like when we did this last year, 73% of the respondents to last year's survey said that their partner strategy and their company strategy was aligned, right? And we're like, amazing. Like every CEO is talking about partnerships and the partnership leaders are getting hired, they're getting budget and all this stuff, right? And then we said, wait a sec. There's a lot of different ways to look at the maturity of your partner program, but how about we flip it? How about we give you all a maturity model and we give you some questions and then you go have conversations with your executives to see what they think partnership, how core partnerships is to their strategy, right? And so the results are here now, right? So 37% of the people that surveyed said that their executive team views partner ecosystems as core to their strategy, right? Which means like they have a focus on central hubs, like they have marketplaces, they have certifications, they have APIs, they've got services companies, they've got developers, resellers, like if you're in that type of world, like that's who you are. But the majority, again, almost like 60% of the market is not there, right? And I would say if we were to go even further down, like 44% of the market is actually at partner source still, right? So there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. The other thing that was interesting is 70% of the respondents said that they had teams that were less than 10 people. So to me, that's like, well, we got to get ready for the digital human age. Like if we can't get headcount as bodies, we just got to get these agents and then figure stuff out. But the thing that's even more interesting, which will be awesome news to all of our channel friends, is that almost 40% of the people said that the channel is their highest revenue generating partner type, and they're going to focus on it. Now, this is like wild for our audience because it's mostly ISVs and not necessarily like the channel partners and stuff, but that was a very interesting. And the last one was also surprising because when we did this webinar, the guy who runs AWS Marketplace was actually on the webinar, and then we have like all this audience, right? And then half of them say they have no plans of doing Marketplace. There's like 600 people on this webinar, right? But also 50% of the audience had Marketplace listing, and almost all of them saw less than 5% of their revenue coming from Marketplace. So this is like a huge, at least in my opinion, like problem that we all need to go fix.
I don't find the channel answer surprising because I think the reality is the channel is on the most solid ground in terms of how companies capture revenue generation. And so I think for companies, you're also hearing partner sourced is still like the dominant metric that a lot of these companies are sourcing. So that tracks, right? Because if you're looking at the value of like ISV partnerships, it's going to be a lot more complex. And now the channel can be too, right? You can have them have entire impacts across the customer journey. But I think I think that would align with what you hear in market and where we are in terms of the maturity of how we measure the value of partnerships.
Well, I was always taught that hire the leader and the org sets itself. That's why I'm like, we need more CPOs. If it's not clear already how big a fan I'm of CPOs, it should be pretty clear. But folks, if you want the access to this report, you can just go visit partnershipleaders.com and we have enough information there. But the other thing, Kelly, that is, I would say, even more interesting than this stuff is Catalyst, our big conference, turns 5 this year. And so this thing started off
Getting
as
old.
I feel like it's just like it's getting adulter.
Is it getting stale? Is it played out now at 5?
I don't know. We'll find out. We're doing it in NYC because people said we want this in a destination city. So for folks that don't know, like the reason why we put on a conference is because when we started the community, COVID was in bloom, right? And then as COVID subsided, people said, let's go meet in person. And 420 people showed up to it. And then that's where this thing started. Then we said, well, there is no CES for partnerships. There's no one place where, let's call it technology partner people or product partner people and channel people and alliances people all come together for the sake of partnerships. Not because then when they go to other industry conferences, you're aligning your executives, you're aligning like your customers, you're aligning the partner. Like where's the one place where, let's call it tri-party partnering happens, right? And then that's essentially what we've created. And so we're going to have 1,000 people at this thing this year. I'm sure Kelly's going to be there. Hopefully, awesome. Now that Kathleen knows about it, she may be there. That's also okay if you miss it. But Workday's been there before. Like Workday's for sure been there. Our good friend Ty Lingley has been a big proponent of supporting partnership leaders in the Workday camp, I would say.
Oh, awesome. Well, perfect. Well, we should definitely be there.
All right. Kathleen, if you have to run, you're welcome to jump off because we want to be respectful of your time. But if you're welcome, you're also welcome to stay so we can finish this. I have 2 amazing other talking points that I want to just share with the audience. But if you want, how are you doing on time?
I could stay on 10 more minutes.
Okay, great, sweet. That's all we need. Unless Kelly interrupts me, and then we'll need more. So just kidding. We've been doing this for a long time. But
I only interrupt you when it's much needed, Asher.
100%. I need that, So, all right, let's talk about book recommendations, right? So Kelly, actually, you introduced us to the guy, what was it? The Platform Revolution?
Platform Revolution. I highly recommend that book. Now, Asher and I interviewed one of the authors. I think that was a year or 2, and they said they were coming out with an updated version that was very focused on B2B, but it has not yet dropped.
Okay, well, we need to call
the original is amazing, so everyone should read that book.
Well, then the other co-author ended up DJing in Catalyst Denver. Do you remember that? And so then we were like, well, what does the third co-author do, right? And turns out the third co-author just wrote a book called Reshuffle. It's making the rounds, right? If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend, because the core focus of the book is, don't think about how AI will replace me. Think about how AI will rewire the system that I work in. So an example from the book is like Google Maps didn't exist because we had better maps, right? It won because it coordinated a lot of different people in real time on a map. And so before Google Maps, like drivers navigated independently, traffic data was static or delayed. I know I remember using Yahoo Maps at one point in time. But then after Google Maps, every driver became a live node, right? Like they could transmit information back. Routes got adjusted dynamically. So it wasn't about the driver. It was actually about the system that got created. And so for us in partnerships, I would say, think about agent-driven motions. I know we did another survey last year where I believe 85% of partner people were already using some sort of a LLM tool, but I don't think they were building agents, right? And so if you use agents, or you can start thinking about utilizing them to, let's say, automate referrals, right? Or provide embedded guidance, or automate co-sell workflows, right? Like these are the things that you can actually do. But I highly recommend the book if you haven't read it. But let's flip it to Kelly and Kathleen. What would be a good book to recommend to our audience?
I already just recommended one, so I'll flip it to Kathleen.
All right.
Okay. Well, I'm almost finished. I'm listening to Brene Brown's book, Strong Ground, and it's awesome. I mean, I think for any leader out there, She has such great stories, and I think just such strong perspective. There's some really amazing, I think, advice in there, especially leaders going through lots of change. So I love it. I don't want to give any of it away because she's, like I said, she's got so many great stories in it, but easy read.
Super. All right. Yeah. Let's move to the CEO corner, right? Like I was thinking of okay, we've talked about a little about the roles. We've talked a little about programs. In my humble opinion, like if you want to be a senior partnership leader, you have to have a direct relationship with the CEO. It's very important because the CEO has so much pressure on them. On things that they need to get done, and they're thinking a lot of so many things, they might inadvertently deprioritize partnerships versus intentionally, right? There are plenty of cases where they've done it intentionally, but you've got to have a direct relationship with them. So if you want to think a little bit about that type of stuff, right, I think it's important to understand that and Satya made this point on in one of the Davos sessions this week, that if you look at the world's GDP, right, the technology spend is still a fraction of the world's GDP, which I think is like somewhere around 120 trillion or something like that. And then it's going to grow. So these narratives that we're seeing in the marketplace are not zero sum. Like there's a lot of workloads and a lot of stuff that has to be digitized, and technology can enable that. But then if we go down to one level down, Kelly saw this article where it said 4,500 CEOs in a survey by PwC saw 56% of the 4,500 CEOs saw no cost savings or revenue gains with AI, and then I guess I saw another article from BCG which said, well, the CEO is the new chief AI officer. So I guess the way I interpret it is like if they're not seeing it and their boards are telling them to go figure it out, then they're like, well, I guess there's no chief AI officer. It's me.
I think CEOs right now are absolutely on the hook for both internal AI usage within their companies and then whatever their services or product strategy is. And it has to be at that level, right? Like to use AI beyond the more simple use cases of like, hey, let's generate content on the marketing team that we can then edit. These like agentic use cases, things that are structural and require people processes change within an organization, you need top-down support. So I think there's a lot of truth, even if you have a dedicated, like you see people hiring both internal and external leaders at a high level, and you own the AI strategy for the company. But ultimately, the CEO, it's make or break. And you think about like the market, right? If the CEO is not telling a compelling AI story to the market, their stock's going to be punished or their financials will be punished because people need that belief right now.
Kathy, what is Workday CEO's top priority? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so AI is one of them, but I'll start by saying I woke up this morning to an email from my CEO, Carl Eschenbach, on a follow-up with a partner he met at Davos and what happened there. So, I mean, to your point about the CEO being involved, like, it's really important, and not only important, it's incredibly helpful. We're lucky. We've got someone really invested. But yeah, I think,
we're on both. By the way, like, I mean, you have a killer.
I know.
I mean, you had like Anil and Dave Duffield were awesome. Like, because Dave was such a like. I think they also had like PeopleSoft pedigree, but they just had a way to create culture. Like those two guys did an amazing job. But Carl's phenomenal too, by the way.
Oh yeah, and the culture lives on. So he is phenomenal. But I think we're living it the AI on both sides because we're both developing AI, products and tooling. We acquired a company called Sana. Our internal people are developing, agents to do processes internally themselves. But at the same time, as a company ourselves running, I think likely Carl is facing the same pressures that every CEO is facing, which is how do you get the return? So lots of productivity happening, a lot of experiments, and how do you drive that return? So I think I'm like excited. I mentioned a couple products earlier. Like we're seeing real return. I think we've just got to stay focused on that. But I think 2026 is going to be the year of going from experiment to real returns inside of companies. And I think our partners have a lot of both opportunity to lean in there and a lot to gain from participating.
I mean, the stat is like like 75% of CEOs now personally own AI decisions, and 50% say their job is on the line, which really then, if you go back to some of the stuff that we've discussed, like as a partner leader, I would be figuring out my incentive strategy would be an adoption expansion. Like everything else is cool and great, but if this stuff doesn't go from like pilot to like project to production, right? Like, or pilot to production, like everybody suffers, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, we're almost done. Like, I have 3 minutes left, and then both Kathy and Kelly are just going to hang up the phone on me. But two things that are very interesting. One is our good friend Ross Brown, who's been on the Unlearn podcast. It was also the author of the famous 6 Roles of a Channel Chief, has been busy at work. I've also been, encouraging him lightly, and Kelly's probably going to roll her eyes, because when I say lightly, it just means I'm calling him every weekend. But
don't give Asher your cell phone. You'll never hear the end of it, Kathleen.
Okay, well, that was the last question, Kelly. It's like, it's like that one guy on YouTube who like goes interviews all these billionaires, and his last question is, can I have your cell phone? So anyways, back to the point. So Ross is writing the Chief Partner Officer, a guide to become an effective partner leader, as a sequel to that. And this thing is like extremely long, and I've been working a little bit with him on it. But I'm super excited. Like hopefully he can like finish it up and like launch this thing. But that is something that is coming, and it's also awesome because like between Ross and Colleen, they are the people who came up with deal registration, right? Like they were the pioneers, and they were fixing all these problems, and now we're just facing different problems. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully you two are. And with that, we are at the very first episode in this new format. So thank you to our listeners for sticking with us. I know we threw a lot of anecdotes, a lot of data, a lot of stories. And then thank you, Kathleen, for being brave enough to like spend this time with us, especially when it's your year end.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Super. All right, folks. Until next time, see you later. Thanks for listening. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player or YouTube. Share it with a colleague, or tell us what you thought of it on LinkedIn. See you next time.